Barrett is a politician who isn't afraid to get his hands dirty.
Thing called Operation Target, which will talk us hot-footed over from a meeting with the Olympics Committee, haven't you? Did you bring up the fact that you didn't get any tickets?
I did. Funny you should mention that, Matt. I did. I was one of the many who found that the computer said no the other day, and I was extremely hacked off, as you can imagine.
Yes.
But I'm going to have another crack at it on Friday.
Yeah.
Going to be up at 6.
I'm going to be up at 6 o'clock, and I'm going to see if I can make the thing work.
Yeah. Well, today, though, people who have been lucky have found out what allocations they've had, which events they've seen. Do you think, looking back, has the system been handled as well as it could have been?
Do you know, you talk to the Olympics guys, this is something they've been bracing for, because they always knew the public was going to be disappointed. There weren't ever going to be enough tickets to satisfy demand. What I would say to people, particularly people obviously in London who are disappointed because they feel they're paying extra for the games, there will be huge opportunities to get into the park before the games.
Yeah.
There will be a live site. Hundreds of thousands of people will be able to get into the live sites, participate in the Olympic atmosphere, watch the thing, and maybe even we'll get some of the athletes in so they can really feel that they've taken part. They've been there at the Olympics.
Okay, well, we'll talk about the Olympics a little bit more later on, but first we're going back to crime busting. For years, the police have struggled to track criminals from one area to another, with information travelling slower between forces than the suspects are travelling themselves.
Yeah, now the answer is a new central database, which is launched tomorrow. The problem is, you could be on it, even if you've done nothing wrong. And a lot of those people will be innocent. So how do you feel about it then? Where do you stand on it?
This is one of those really difficult ones, because obviously you don't want people's civil liberties being infringed. But when you look at the cases that they're now solving with DNA, you look at particularly the case of the Soham murders, you've got to think it's a sensible way forward.
Yeah, okay. Well, Boris, lots of people down the country are going to be interested in how you're cracking down on break-ins and...
I just want to go back to that, because that guy that we interrupted earlier in the morning, he was admittedly slightly amazed to see me at the end of his bed. And you can expect that it wasn't surprising that he was a little bit flummoxed, but he wasn't as angry as all that.
Okay, but
there was a slightly misleading. But
Operation Target, it sounds very direct. What are you doing?
What we're trying to do is to deal with a rise in burglary and robbery that we're seeing, and this is being caused by a small number of people who are basically trading in stolen iPhones, stolen iPads, that kind of thing. So we target them. We can bring down those crimes as well, because crime in general is now coming down across the board. It's down about 10% in the last 3 years, and Operation Target is about arresting a particular number of known people who are aggravating the problem of robbery. And I think we've made about 1,200 arrests. We've taken loads of guns, loads of ammunition. It's hitting the hardened customers.
Yeah.
And I think that's worth doing.
Well, it's definitely a positive step, but you say you're cutting crime, but your opponents say you're cutting down on the police force. So how can you do both then?
Well, we're not cutting down on the police force, and in fact, by next year, by the end of my term as mayor in 2012, we'll have about 1,000 more warranted officers in London than there were when I took over in 2008. You've got to get police out there. You've got to keep the safer neighbourhood teams up, and we'll certainly be doing that. I never tire of telling Mayor Bloomberg of New York, London is now one of the safest big cities in the world. You're 4 times more likely to be murdered in New York as you are in London. The murder rate in London is down to the lowest it's been for about 30 years. So the police are actually doing a fantastic job.
Well, Boris, while we're on the subject of crime, we cannot avoid this little subject. Just lost your cultural strategy manager for shoplifting.
He's been promoted to my cultural strategy manager. It's perfectly true.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what took place. I read what I read in the pages of the Evening Standard, where he gave an interview which seemed to suggest that was
Have you checked the office since he's gone? I just made
pens missing, paper clips, that type of stuff.
we run a very tight ship. I want you to know, we cut down on waste so dramatically in City Hall already. There's very little to steal now.
Wow, that's good.
Now then, on to Glastonbury, other news. U2 are playing Glastonbury this weekend, but the crowds won't just be full of screaming fans.
No, protesters plan to demonstrate against Bono and Co, for not paying their fair share of tax.
Avoiding tax isn't just for rock stars, though. Paying as little as possible is big business for those who can afford it.
Well, we got in touch with you two, and unfortunately they weren't available to comment on Friday's planned protests.
Okay, well, Boris, people will want to know where politicians stand on this. So, do you take steps to pay as little tax as possible legally?
Well, if I could, I would, but no, I cough up whatever
Yeah.
the tax man asks, and so should Bono.
Yeah.
Pro bono publico.
Well, of course.
I mean, pronounce his name correctly. I was interested in the report there. I mean, that's a lot of money they're going to bring in by those measures, and quite right too.
Yeah.
Now, governments across Europe need all the money they can get, but you have said that you think we should let Greece go bankrupt. So, a year from now, then, do you see another world financial meltdown?
Well, I think Greece is getting itself into a very difficult position where people are accepting more and more cuts of their standard of living, people are losing their jobs, benefits going, all the rest of it, and all really so that they can stay in the euro. And you've got to ask yourself, at least the question, would they perhaps be better off going for a new drachma, devaluing, redenominating their debts, putting their hands up and saying, we've got to try something else? Because if you look at the experience of Latin American countries who pegged to the dollar for too long, or you think of what happened to the UK after we came out of the ERM in the early 90s, actually, devaluation, being able to cut interest rates, paradox. Everybody said we wouldn't be able to cut interest rates, but we did. It might be the best thing for Greece. A lot of people disagree with that. A lot of people say the convulsion would be too great, the knock-on effect on the banking system would be too disastrous, British banks would be badly affected. You've got to keep the whole show on the road, keep it there, kick the can down there. And I understand that argument, but what I worry about is that if we're constantly waiting for the Greeks to default, constantly the victims of this potential crisis will never really have confidence again, and not have confidence again anytime soon.
Okay, Boris. Okay, now then, for families who desperately want a child, surrogacy can be the best thing to a natural birth.
It's hard to imagine the emotions involved for the couple seeing their baby grow inside another woman, and of course for the surrogate who has to hand over the newborn child.
But more than 100 families do it every single year, and Lady Pauline Prescott went to meet one of them. Tomorrow, Mum, Dad and Baby are going to be joining us here in the studio, so really looking forward to that.
Speaking of families, I mean, you Johnsons, you're a bit like the Kennedys, really. Your dad, yourself.
Charlie Kennedy.
Three of you are in politics. Any plans, do you think, for your children to follow suit and go into politics? Are they showing any?
I don't think it's. I think it'd be very unwise of me to speculate.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Well, it seems like you've got a lot of similarities between you and your dad, but what about your mum? We don't really hear much about her. What traits do you have?
My mother?
Yeah.
Oh, you want me to talk about my mother? She's a brilliant artist.
She is, yeah.
She is a brilliant artist, so...
Are you artistic?
No, I'm nothing like her, but I love painting. I love painting, and I try to relax by painting.
Yeah.
I like, you get those, if you buy a box of French cheese in the supermarket.
Yeah, of course.
They have these beautiful little wooden boxes. So I like covering them with white paint and then painting on them.
Oh, how lovely. Sounds great.
You'll have to bring one in next time.
Like sort of primary school.
Okay. Well, talking of cheese, we're moving on to eggs now.
Yeah. Now then, as a politician, you know you shouldn't count your chickens before they hatch.
But as a farmer, I can tell you, if you have got them in the back garden, then it's probably a good idea. Table in the One Show studio, because at the last Olympics, Boris, you famously said this.
And I say to the child...
We had a late warm-up during the film, and let me tell you, Boris is on fire. Already.
Okay, here we go. You just launched a literacy project with Peter Andre. Can you name one of Peter Andre's songs and can you sing it?
Peter Andre is a brilliant singer. I would say Mysterious
Girl.
Girl, yes. Good lad.
My Mysterious Girl.
Oh, he's
You're
just got
backing
me.
a plan to build 30-storey towers that will block the view from David Cameron's house. Was this deliberate?
Pass.
Who do you fear most?
I can't comment on planning.
Okay. Who do you fear most at the next election? Ken Livingstone or Lembit Opik?
I think apathy.
Okay, you once learned Welsh to try and become an MP in Clwyd South. Can you remember any Welsh? Hey, da iawn. Your green policy is based on the 4 green R's. You failed to remember them in a recent interview. Can you remember them tonight?
Yes. Reuse, recycle, reuse, recycle, reduce,
Yes, good.
and regurgitate.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Boris, the champion. Smashed it. Thanks ever so much. Good luck with getting the Olympic tickets on Friday morning, yeah?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm gonna get up.
Tomorrow, Denise Welsh and Tim Healy will be here. We will see you at 7. Thank you so much, Boris.
Classic. Right, come on, Boris. Free match.